Satoru the Infiltrator was released recently in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and the reaction I saw a lot of people have was, finally, a fair commander for ninjas. And that's exactly what I thought too. But now I'm starting to think Satoru isn't the ninja commander we've all been hoping for. The other two obvious options for ninja commanders are Yuriko the Tiger Shadow and Satoru Umezawa. Both of these are great commanders, and they're both ninjas. So what's the problem? The problem is that both commanders are so strong that they've developed a stigma. At casual tables, Yuriko is synonymous with pub stomping in CEDH, and the original Satoru isn't much better. Showing up to casual tables with either of these commanders can get you sideways glances, and a good number of people will ask you to switch decks because of an expected power mismatch. Yuriko is a beast that can start hitting turn 2 after dropping an unblockable creature on turn 1. She hits for 1 damage, puts a card in your hand, and drains each opponent for the mana value of the card you put in your hand. Each opponent. If one of your opponents has a weak early board state, every player is punished for it. And the cards usually in the decks, like Temporal Trespass, are going to be draining players for a lot. If you destroy or exile her, she comes back the next turn for 2 mana again, since you can use the ninjutsu ability from the command zone. The safest option is putting an enchantment like Imprisoned in the Moon on her, or trying to destroy literally every other creature so there's nothing for her to return. And she triggers anytime any ninja hits, not just herself. She can be oppressive at tables that aren't extremely high power as well. Satoru Umezawa has a different problem. While in theory, his ability to put cards in your hand when you activate a ninjutsu ability would encourage you to play all the ninjas you can, his final ability, giving all creatures in your hand ninjutsu, encourages you to not play all the ninjas you can. It encourages you to play ridiculously powerful high mana creatures so you can cheat them into play for 4 mana with the ninjutsu ability. A lot of games with the original Satoru essentially just wait for the Satoru player to get to 4 mana, ninjutsu in something like a Blightsteel Colossus, and one person is dead. Oh, and don't forget to do your Satoru trigger to put another choice card in your hand. While not as egregious as Yuriko, Satoru Umezawa is also seen as a problem at casual tables. There's also Goro Goro and Satoru, which can also reward ninjutsu'd creatures damaging players, but it's more of a haste commander. The haste granting effect is even printed on the card. While it can theoretically be made into a ninja deck, red doesn't really add anything to the ninja plan, and it would be more worth your time building around creatures with haste damaging players. In walks Satoru the Infiltrator, the ninja commander of our dreams. He's cheap at 2 mana, has a light form of evasion and menace, and he draws a card each time you activate a ninjutsu ability. The deck builds itself, right? I've come to the conclusion that no, it kinda doesn't. If you try to pack your deck full of all the ninjas and unblockable 1-drops, you're gonna run out of gas very quickly. You'll be able to play Satoru, attack with your unblockable creature, ninjutsu out a ninja, and draw a card. Now what? Once you get your ninjas on the board, they kinda lose their benefits. Their bodies are typically frail and without evasion. They need to deal damage to players to get their own benefits, which is difficult to do with any blockers. And even if they do connect, Satoru won't draw you any more cards off of them. Ninja decks are already pulled in a few different directions. You need evasive creatures to return with ninjutsu, you need a pile of ninjas to have one when you need one, and you need some kind of payoff. And you'd still need either a way to return your ninjas to hand consistently to ninjutsu them again, which is costing mana each time, or you need to grant your ninjas unblockability with something like Trailblazer's Boots, in which case your unblockable creatures are redundant. And we are balancing all of these spinning plates for the payoff of draw a card when you use a ninjutsu ability. With Yuriko, it works because the payoff of drawing a card and draining large amounts of life for each ninja dealing damage is a big enough payoff that the deck can close out games in a timely manner. With Satoru, you get to draw a card, and then maybe you can make sure your 1-3 power ninja gets through again, but no more cards. Low power creatures that you have to work to deal damage to players with is not going to close out games fast enough. Unfortunately, Yuriko remains the queen of the ninjas, not just because of the power level, but because her design wants you to play all the cheap ninjas you can. It's closer to a ninja deck than Satoru can be. The big problem with Satoru and his ninja deck is that most ninjas aren't good. There are only a handful of playable ninjas, without relying on broken payoff like Yuriko. There's Fallen Shinobi, which is actually very powerful, being able to steal 2 cards from the top of a player's deck and play them for free. Higure, the Still Wind, gives ninjas unblockability and provides card advantage by putting ninjas into your hand. If Satoru gave evasion from the command zone, his playability would be a whole other story. Inkai, Servant of Oni, is a classic that is situationally powerful. It can steal a big creature from a graveyard, but its ability can be completely turned off without big graveyards. Ninja the Deep Hours and Ingenious Infiltrator provide card advantage. Silent Blade Oni and Nashi Moon Sage's Scion can steal cards from opponents in the right circumstances. Sakashima Student and Thousand Face Shadow can become or make copies of other impactful creatures. After that, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel looking for playable ninjas. That makes about 10 that have decent or powerful payoffs on their own, and a dozen or so more that are so fringe that it only makes sense to play them with a powerful payoff like Yuriko. And drawing 1 card off of Satoru is not worth playing subpar cards like Walker of Secret Ways. So, what do? All the ninjas after the 10 or so powerful ones aren't worth playing just for 1 card. And to be fair, you can draw more than 1 card if you use a ninjutsu ability repeatedly on the same attacking creature during the blocker step. You can theoretically draw as many cards as you want for a mana or 2 each during combat on your turn if things line up right. Still a little iffy. But since Satoru's ability triggers whenever a creature that wasn't cast or was cast for no mana enters the battlefield, you'll draw a card whenever one of your creatures is blinked, whenever you reanimate a creature, whenever you cheat a creature into play, or whenever you cast a 0-cost creature. Those are a lot of different options that are far easier to trigger reliably than ninjutsu. Let's talk about the last option first. If you look at Satoru's EDH rec page, you'll see the typical ninjas, some blink stuff, reanimation, and a bunch of X-cost creatures, like Walking Ballista and Endless One. These are all used alongside Satoru to draw a card for 0 mana. You play the X creature for 0, it dies immediately, but triggers Satoru to draw a card. And with enough of these, you can draw through your deck pretty easily and complete the combo kill with things like Blood Artist effects. This seems like a unique and strong type of build, but if I wanted to play a ninja that can win the game before anyone could react, why not just play Yuriko? The draw of Satoru was being the first quote-unquote fair ninja commander. The other options are Blink and Reanimator. Cheating things into play isn't super reliable unless you're building around something like Knowledge Pool or Quicksilver Amulet. Possible, but sort of unreliable. Reanimate effects are powerful, and Reanimate itself and the other Reanimator pieces are cheap right now monetarily because of their recent reprints in the Blue and Black Karlov Manor Precon. And reanimating something big is a great payoff that you'd be happy to draw a card alongside. Blink spells like Essence Flux and Displace are pretty powerful creature protection that will trigger Satoru's ability, even if you blink Satoru himself. And blink effects, reanimation effects, and ninjas all share a common ground. They are all methods of triggering ETB effects. If you blink a Baleful Strix, reanimate a Baleful Strix, or return it to hand by using a ninjutsu ability, you're allowing the ETB effect to be used more than once. Cheap or powerful ETB effect creatures synergize well with all methods of attack. I don't want to sound like I'm saying no ninjas belong in a Satoru deck, because some do. But instead of packing a deck full of the bad ones to try to trigger him with ninjutsu, just play the good ones that you'd be happy to use alongside blink and reanimation effects for value. Bouncing a Ravenous Chupacabra with Yuriko sounds great. Paying 2 to draw a card off of Satoru when you ninjutsu in your Ninja the Deep Hours, then drawing again on combat damage, seems worth the 2 mana. And blink strategies are actually very powerful, even excluding white and staying in blue. You have access to Thassa Deep Dwelling, Sword of Hearth and Home, and Deadeye Navigator, alongside all the cheap instant speed spells we mentioned earlier. Playing ETB creatures alongside Blink and Ninjas is a powerful way to create enough value to keep up with the rest of the table with more straightforward strategies. Unfortunately, Satoru the Infiltrator isn't the ninja commander we've all been waiting for. Without leaning into a combo, he's a commander that's pulled in a few different directions. But instead of having to include 3 different types of cards just to function as a ninja commander that draws cards unreliably, he's a commander that can include 3 different strategies that are strong enough on their own. I don't think Satoru works best focused on any one of the 3. Making him a Reanimator only or a Blink only or Ninja only commander means you're giving up on the best cards of the other strategies. In this case, some give and take is best. In fact, I'm starting to think that the prince that was promised for ninjas is actually Felix Five-Boots. Felix plays better alongside ninjas by rewarding the ninjas for what they do best, combat damage triggers. Once you get your ninjas on the battlefield, Satoru won't really help them draw anymore, but Felix will continue to give your ninjas tangible benefit by doubling their effects when they deal combat damage. Green also brings the option to include Springleaf Avenger, which is a genuinely good ninja as well, and maybe even Kappa Tech Wrecker. Felix is a deck that's perfect to slot a bunch of ninjas into, because it already wants to play unblockable 1-drops and reward other Saboteur effects with doubled up card draw and the like. However, if you're in the market for a flexible commander that can play on a few different axes, Satoru may be a good choice. Like other flexible decks, it's all about finding the right balance. It'll take a decent amount of playtesting to determine how many ninjas, how much Blink, and how much Reanimator makes sense for you. My version is still a work in progress, but I'm certain that Satoru isn't a ninja commander. He's a little bit of a lot of things, and that's alright. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on Satoru the Infiltrator. What do you think? Does the deck fare best with multiple strategies? Have you gotten an all-ninja version to work outside of very casual tables? How did you close out the game? How would you build them differently? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, give it a like and subscribe to be notified about more MTG content. Have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you later.